Slide right up. It's not the one we called up, is it? That'd take a while. And this is how you come down. Looks like the early bird gets the worm here. Miss this guy doing his cruise. I'm sure you'll see him sometime though. It's not a bad backdrop, is it? Pretty slow so far for what I'm trying to do. You have to warn me if a bear comes out behind me. Actually, last year I did this right here and a bear did come by behind me. I didn't know until later on, after I looked at the video. Seen a few bears today. Got my prawn trap set. But not the big old mature one I'm looking for, or two. And for anyone curious, yes, every single piece of meat is going to be utilized. That's why I'm doing it. And I try to hold out for the largest one I can as well, so that I can as well utilize the hide from it. A lot of guys, if they'll harvest a bear and they might lose their patience and not hold out for a big one, big old one, and they'll shoot a smaller one and they won't bother with the hide. They'll just toss it. I prefer to get a big, huge, old, past its prime, large bear, utilize the whole thing. But in the meantime, this is a good spot to get some emails shared. I'm going to try not to talk too loud. Well, your sound carries, although there's a good breeze. Now, I think a lot of these were, I had a little folder with a bunch of sent in comments. So I believe that's where these handful of shares come from the comment section on the YouTube channel somewhere. Emailed to me. It's titled Steve, I'm watching YouTube videos. First I saw them because I am and have been a lifelong hunter. Then I saw one on the subject of Sasquatch where he discussed bullying on a hunting forum. I really liked and appreciated your take on the subject, especially where you talked about hating bullies. I hate bullies too. I was a cop for 27 years, which kind of brings me to what I experienced last year in Barretts, Montana. B-A-R-R-E-T-S, Montana. As I said, I was a cop for 27 years. I approached things with open-minded cynicism. In other words, I like evidence. I want to be able to see it, touch it, feel it, test it, and then make my decision. Anyway, I retired from the department 3 years ago. I'm from northern Arizona. I've been around black bear, mountain lion, coyote, wildcat, and even a wolf. I've hunted most things in North America that can hunt you. I also worked gangs, narcotics for 20 years and worked around and against human predators that can and will see you hunt. I'm not, oh wow, I got service right here. I'm not given to flights of fancy or unreasonable fear. I'm not saying I was never afraid. You have to be an idiot to not be afraid when you're getting ready to breach a door, knowing there are armed men on the other side who would rather kill you than go back to prison. But I never let that stop me from doing what I had to do. That takes a big brass set to do that. So, I retired from my department just over 3 years ago, and after a while decided I needed a second career. I taught school for a semester and really didn't like it. And, on a fluke, my best friend and competitive shooting buddy said, "Let's go to truck driving school." So we did. My buddy and I drove as a team and spent all of last winter in the mountain states, seemingly running from Phoenix, Arizona, near where I live, to Shelby, Montana. We used to overnight in Barretts, Montana, at a Sinclair station that had a cafe, a small store, and parking for about 20 semis. It was a regular stop for us. So I am and was familiar with the area. We stopped this night and I was in the driver's seat and my buddy was sitting on the lower bunk in the sleeper. We had a movie on the DVD player and I was paying half attention to that and half attention to my laptop when I caught some movement past the driver's window. Bear in mind, this is a small facility and it is 100 yards from the freeway, but generally surrounded by a large field with 3 to 4 foot tall grass and thicket that goes right into foothills and mountains. I looked in the mirror and saw the biggest, presumed, man I had ever seen step behind my trailer, which was about 70 feet behind me. I said, Jesus, that's the biggest mother blank I've ever seen. Damn. My buddy popped up and looked out the passenger mirror and said, "No shit." And told me he saw a, quote, big guy, end quote, walk between the space between the rear of a trailer and a truck that was parked next to us. I didn't think any more of it for a while, but but then realized that when I caught the movement next to me, the head of the guy was nearly at my shoulder level, which was 10 feet off the ground. I was in my 2019 Freightliner Cascadia tractor. The bottom of the window line of my door is 9.5 feet from ground level. My cop brain went into assessment mode, and I thought, no, he couldn't have been that tall. There must have been a shadow casting on my window. I wasn't even considering Sasquatch. I was in what do I know and what does the evidence tell me mode. But I was tired and put it out of my mind. I finished up and my partner and I went back to our bunks and killed the TV and lights. The only noise is from my APU running to keep the heater running. I fell into a very light sleep, which was unusual because I usually sleep like a baby. I'm totally comfortable in my truck, but not this night. It's like I felt like I was hovering between sleep and wakefulness. Around midnight, I really had to pee. Since the store/cafe was already closed by 9 p.m., I climbed out of the passenger side of my tractor to check the chains. Pee between the tractor and the trailer near the snow chain hooks. The truck that had been parked next to us was already gone, so the space was open from my truck to the grass field. For some reason, I felt like I was being hunted or watched. Maybe not actively hunted like prey, but I definitely was aware of something predatory being aware of me. I've been hunted by criminals. I've been around predatory animals, but I have never felt like this before. I finished quickly and looked around and scanned the grass field on the quarter moonlight and had a deep down feeling that I should not move toward the field. It was like a pheromone instinct that signaled that danger existed if I did. Like all the hardwired primal instincts of survival just told me not to move in that direction. I then heard oomph. Not like someone hit someone in the gut, but just a low verbalization of oomph. I got back into the truck and locked the door. I felt like there was something out there that was dangerous, but only if I did something to trigger an aggressive response. I got back into my bunk and made sure that my Glock 10mm pistol was in the cubby by my head. Being a retired police officer, I can legally carry in all 50 states, but I also made sure 2 spare magazines were close to hand as well. One sec. No bears yet? Okay. In the time I'd been trucking, I never felt as though I had to do that, not even when parked in downtown Detroit. Hold on. Something was telling every fiber of my being that there was something out there that was, while not aggressive, it was dangerous. I tried to put it out of my mind and listened to a podcast while trying to go back to sleep. I slept a little bit, but I had a sense of foreboding. At 3 a.m., I sat bolt upright reaching for my Glock. I saw it, whatever it was, go by the front of the truck, this time in the space between the building and my truck. I moved out of my bunk to the passenger side window and only caught a faint and fading shadow moving into the darkness out of the faint glow of the low sodium lighting on the building 75 yards away. I was up now and there was no way I was going back to sleep. I got out my coffee maker and started a pot of coffee and got dressed. I still had 90 minutes on my electronic log before I could go back on duty and drive us out of there, but all I wanted to do was leave ASAP. I drank my coffee. I kept looking out the windows of the truck, but I didn't see anything else. The sun started coming up, and with the light, the sense of foreboding retreated. I could see all around the truck, and the few other trucks parked in the lot, and out into the grass field and up to the building. My buddy asked from the top bunk why I was up so early. We literally had an extra day and a half more than we needed to drop the load we were hauling, so we had planned to do a 34-hour reset at Barrett's. I told him what I had felt all night, and he quietly said, "Me too." When the sun was fully up, I walked all around the places where I'd seen it. I was using my cop brain again and realized that the hard-packed gravel would hold no tracks, especially as cold as it was. I walked to the edge of the grass field, and while there was a trail, it was a game trail where I'm sure deer moved through, so there were no large footprints visible. When the cafe opened for breakfast, my buddy and I went in to eat a meal. We didn't cook in the truck microwave and tried to figure out what we'd experienced and seen. I am firmly convinced that I saw a Sasquatch. I took the known and the unknown and the puzzle pieces, put it into one logical assumption that could be made. At any rate, we decided to put a day of driving between us and Barrett's and get to a larger truck stop or terminal to do our 34-hour reset. End of story. And that wasn't from the comments. That was an email. Sorry, I was playing my phone last night, you guys, trying to organize it. Thanks for sending that, man. Appreciate it. And it's great that you said where, because if that happened to you guys there, the chances of that happening to somebody else are real high, right? Real high. And the chances of them following this channel, listening right now, is really high too. So we'll see if something else comes up from that. And it's got something else, right? Something else to see something like that. It doesn't sound much of a description to people listening, possibly, but when you're there and you see something like that, bingo, instant tattoo into your brain. Never going to leave. Crisp, clear memory. I feel like bombing around in the boat a little bit, maybe going to another beach and hiking, but this is a pretty cool spot to be. I've got my back to all the action, so you guys can see the backdrop instead of just pointing the camera to the blank forest. But I'll get another one shared while I'm sitting right here. Chuck on the boat. Whoa. Tide's changed. It's coming in pretty quick. I got the Zodiacs tied up pretty good on a long line. There's one pretty big bear cruising along here. I missed him. He's probably first light this morning. So there's definitely one worthy one around here. Alright, what's this one? This is titled, it's titled red now. This is titled Native Sunset. This is a comment from a person on YouTube that calls himself Native Sunset 65. A decade of poetry. The encounters with these beings is way beyond bizarre. There was a hunter in his blind looking down into a valley with binoculars when noticed movement on the other hill. A huge boulder was moved and out came 3 huge Bigfoot. From an opening, as he was looking at them, he noticed one was looking right at him. Even in his camo, the big one spotted him and pointed his way. About 10 seconds later, he could hear crunching leaves all around him. When he looked back for the Bigfoot, the boulder had been put back and the Bigfoot were gone. He said through the binoculars he got a good look at their faces. He said they looked more monstrous than humans. Very ugly monsters. He hasn't gone back to that valley since the way he was chased out of there was like a warning to never come back. And he said he thought his heart was going to burst through his chest. He was in so much fear as he was running for his life to his truck. That's it. All right. So if you put this as a comment on the YouTube channel and you got more details of that particular episode, email it to me, all right? If you would. Or not, but if you feel like it, email in more details for us. That's a very interesting experience by the sounds of that. Here's another one that is a comment from the YouTube channel. Ty T.Y. Westgard. I saw a meteor go by in lower interior of BC. Everyone saw the trajectory and the approximate area of impact, and it's been years with a bunch of people searching for it. It's a whole lot of nothing out there. I was also a timber cruiser in northern BC and came across territory markers. Trees ripped out of the ground and flipped upside. I worked alone. And 3 places in BC that scare the ever-living shit out of me. They own the forest. Okay, Ty Westgard, your comment was noticed and sent to me. Especially British Columbia. Absolutely curious of what you know and what you've seen, all right? So if you're here watching our channel still, and you want to share some of what you got, do it. If you would. Share my story at howtohunt.com, alright, man? We want to hear all we can. Especially people in northern BC, right? There's another one. I think this is also a comment from the channel. After World War II, my grandfather, who was Japanese and fought in the Japanese army, was among the prisoners taken by the Russians to the Ural Mountains in Siberia. I think they're used to help build a railway. While he was there, he said they interacted with the locals on occasion, and it was through this that he heard stories of wild, hairy people living in the mountains. My grandfather later shared this with his family after he was released back to Japan, and my mother grew up with the thought that they were wild, hairy humans, that there were wild, hairy humans in all mountains. When I was very young, I remember her telling me that in the mountains, here in the U.S., there were hairy, wild people. She just transferred that hairy, wild people belief to me in a matter-of-fact way. As a child, I always had a longing for the mountains, and quite often as I gazed up into the slopes and trees, I would imagine them as being like cave people. I was always intrigued by anthropology, and I read books on ancient humans all the time, so it was just a natural for me to believe the Patterson film when it first became news in the late 60s. I've been obsessed with knowing the truth for as long as I can remember. There you go. Interesting note. It's been noted as the Russians are quite frustrated and kind of mock North American scientific community because of their stance on this topic and how they do not treat it as fact. They don't treat it as fact publicly anyway. Who knows what goes on behind the scenes with those douchebags, right? Sorry, not sorry. It's the only words I got to describe the people that keep secrets from the people. Nobody in that position. Nobody gets to have that position. It frustrates me. How some humans think they have authority over others. Bugs me. Listen to this. Here's another one. Strange encounter in the forest. In February of '86, I traveled from Saginaw to Ravenna, Michigan, to visit a girl named Patty. I'd recently met while working on Mackinac Island. We read this. I remember that. I remember that one. Now, there's all sorts of... I think my iCloud backed up. Something happened. There's a bunch on here that I don't recognize. So I'll go to the bottom of this list on here. Steve, I appreciate your channel. And what are you doing? But along with your latest video of the man elk hunting and the being sniffing his neck, it brought to my mind a story a late friend of mine had told me about only after I had told him of my only encounter from '84 here in the Appalachian Mountains of northeast Tennessee, only 6 miles away. Anyway, my friend, a Vietnam veteran, and old enough to be my dad, often went to the woods to camp overnight by himself just to get away. One night back in the summer of '78, he hiked into the woods about a mile from the logging road he drove in on. He had laid out a sleeping bag, gathered wood, and started his fire for the night. He told me he had had a beer or two and ate a couple of cans of Vienna sausages. And around 10 or so, we fell asleep. He felt like it was sometime early morning when he was awakened by 2 massive hands that had grabbed him by the biceps, holding him against the ground, and simply began sniffing his face. He told me that the fire had gone out and could not make out anything as it was pitch dark. Whatever it was right in his face. He said he thought he was having a heart attack, and he couldn't move due to the pure fear. My friend estimated this went on for 30 seconds or so, but seemed like an eternity. He told me that whatever it was, its breath was so awful that he felt a strong urge to throw up in its face. But again, he couldn't because of fear. He told me of hair and its warm breath touching his face as it moved up and down, sniffing him in the neck and the face area. Okay, that wouldn't be terrifying or anything, right? After the 30 seconds of sniffing him, he said that the face slowly moved away from his face first, and as doing so, the hands slowly began to release his arms. He told me he just laid there the rest of the night and could not move. He told me he was absolutely motionless until the sun began to rise because he did not hear it leave. And, as one of your videos was titled, it ruined him. And it did. He never went into the woods at night, period. Or during the day alone again and unarmed. But, as he told me, it had me, and there was nothing I could do about it. I never knew this man to lie or even exaggerate the truth even a little. While he told this story to me, I could see his eyes water with fear, just as when he would tell the stories of Vietnam that affected him sometimes. I was his release valve to share things that bothered him, but for some reason, he trusted only me. Rest in peace, R.A.H., my friend's initials. Thanks again, Steve. Thank you for sharing his story with us. That's a terrifying experience. That's brutal. That would suck. That would suck. All right, the tide's coming high enough that my inflatable starting to move around a bit. The rock's pretty smooth there, but I don't want it to move too much and wear a hole, especially where I am right now. Although I notice I do have some service here. It's pretty good. I got one bar. So let's get one more done right here, and then I'm going to move on. Here's a short one. Hey Steve, thank you so much for providing a forum for those of us who have had an encounter. The opportunity to share our experiences with others have had the, misfortune of having to deal with the trauma of trying to make sense of encountering something that the academic, still self-serving scientific community pathetically tries to discredit. I had an encounter back in November 2011, and it traumatized me to the extent that I will never go fishing alone again, and haven't since then. Thanks again for supporting those of us who know the truth. Sincerely, a nowhere. Okay, man. If you're still here, you know what I'm going to ask. Is if you could possibly email me again and share with me some knowledge you have, if you would, all right? If it might help somebody else that goes where you went or have been near, whatever. Even if you want to give the general area where you had your experience, give us a few details so that people that are around there are familiar with that area. No. Okay? And I am fully agreed about the scientific community. It's kind of funny. Sometimes in some other podcasts, they've had people have had wildlife biologists to ask them their take on Sasquatch, and thinking that they may be some kind of an expert, have something known more than us, where you couldn't be farther from the truth. A wildlife biologist goes into school, repeat after me, memorize what I taught you, and pass the test, and they are not taught about these beings. Nobody is. No one is taught anything about these beings in any school, any university, any college. So why people seem to gravitate towards wildlife biologists to ask them, what's really up with Sasquatch? That's like, I don't know. I might as well go deep into the heart of the city and ask a sandwich maker what they know about bear hunting here on the coast. Right? Doesn't make sense. Anyway, I'm babbling. I'm gonna fire this boat up, get back in it, and go snoop around. And I'll take you guys with me. I'll be back in a bit.
cow. What time is it? It is 10 o'clock. Been running around the woods with my buddy of mine. Doing whatever we could. Saw a lot of game. Saw a lot of country. And should probably go to bed right now, but I think instead of like reading a story to myself, I'm going to share some emails to you guys. All right? Whew, what a day. All right, listen to this, you guys. Steve, I've attached what happened to me when I was camping in the Great Smoky Mountains with my family when I was around 8 years old. I'm now 56, and I've lived with this shit for 48 years. So yeah, I've had a lot bottled up inside me. Never stop doing what you're doing. I would follow you to hell and back. You have no clue how much you're doing for all of us who know these damn things are here, and the shitwads who say we're stupid and clueless. We know that monsters are real. Thank you so damn much, man. Sincerely, Jeff Chalfa. Okay, buddy. I'm here. We're all here for you. All of us. Steve, I live in Virginia, and we are around 3 hours from the Great Smoky Mountains. When I was around 8 years old, so this is about 71. I'm 56 now. I went with my family to the Smoky Mountains, and we went camping. The campground we ended up in was kind of off the beaten path and up in the timber. There were other families there, but not a lot. Later in the evening, the other kids and I were out passing football. There was another guy around my age, but the rest were girls, ranging from 8 till around 12 or 13 years old. It was around dusk. So the light was fading away, but not enough that we couldn't see the football, which was orange so we could see it. As we were passing the football around, and one of the girls threw it way over my head and went into the woods. The campground is surrounded by the woods, so we were in there pretty deep. I went in after the ball, which had gone about 15 to 20 feet into the woods and down the embankment. I remember getting the football, and when I looked up, about 20 to 25 feet on down the embankment, I saw what at first looked like one of those wooden statues you see at a tourist location, etc. I wondered why a statue would be there until it moved. The rest of this thing stepped out from behind the tree it was beside of, and we stared at each other for at least 4 to 5 seconds. I have never seen anything as humongous as this thing. I remember it had some gray around its chest area, but never really got a good look at his face. But it was huge. I was frozen, and I couldn't move. It moved so quickly back behind the tree, it almost disappeared. It was that quick. I ran as fast as I could back, and I told everyone that King Kong was in the woods. That's the only thing I can say that it looked like. The adults went and looked in the woods, but it was starting to get dark, and they told me I'd probably seen a bear. This wasn't a bear. This was a monster. The only person that believed me was my dad. We talked about it just a few times when I grew older, and he believed me. My dad was a World War II Navy vet, and like your grandfather, the best generation this world has produced. I lost my dad when I turned 17 years old to a massive heart attack. So, your sight, Steve. I've attached what happened to me when I was camping in the Great Smoky Mountains with my family when I was around 8 years old. I'm now 56, and I have lived through this shit for 48 years. So yeah, I have a lot bottled up inside me. Never stop doing what you're doing. I would follow you to hell and back. You have no clue how much you're doing for all of us who know these damn things are here, and the shitwads who say we are stupid and clueless. We know that monsters are real. Hold on. Sorry, you guys. I'm screwing up here. Thank you so much, man. Sincerely, Jeff Chalfa. Steve, this is the first place I've ever found that I felt as if I could share what happened to me, and no one would make fun of me or call me stupid. Would make fun of me or call me stupid. You know, fuck those people. That's exactly how the hell I feel about it. I've dealt with the people that ridiculed me and said I was full of it, or I didn't know what I saw. Trust me, when someone sees one of these monsters, you never forget it. Everything, especially for an 8-year-old, changes. I knew that monsters existed all my life. I really didn't know anything at that age about Bigfoot, so King Kong was the only thing I could compare it to until I knew more about these things. I grew up in Virginia, so I lived in the woods 24/7. Every time I go into the woods, this memory is sitting there. I'm always on high alert, period. I thank God for you and your channel. This is the first place I've ever felt I can tell what happened to me, and you guys get it. Damn, man, I have tears in my eyes because I have lived with this all my life. Anything I can ever do, please let me know, and thank you, Steve, for everything you're doing. Sincerely, Jeff Chalfa. Jeff, I am so frickin' relieved for you that you could find us here and share with us what you know. All right, man? And you know you're not alone, right? You know you're not alone. So many people find relief here, right? So many real people find relief with the real people. God, it sucks that we're not taught about this shit for real. Man, I'm so tired, you guys. I think it's 10:15, and I have been running around the coast on the boat in the mountains since I think about 7 in the morning straight. But I'm going to keep going. Why not, right? All right, here's another one. Hi, Steve. I meant to type and send this a couple months ago when you had a few videos talking about the sixth sense and intuition, but life got in the way. First, I want to say thank you for all you're doing. I have a handful of friends who've had experiences with these things, and half of them won't even talk about it around most people. Changing the culture towards recognizing these things is the only way to fix that and give honest people the space and time to tell others what they've experienced. Anyways, my wife and I are from Nebraska, and aside from my buddy's drunk dad swearing he'd seen one in Ulysses N.E. as a kid, and he was never one to lie, the topic of Sasquatch didn't come up much. I believe they were real, since first seeing the PG film as a kid, but most people I knew didn't. Regardless, I'd never had a reason to believe I'd been anywhere near these things. My wife and I got married September of 2011, and being young and having not much money, we took a 5-week camping honeymoon from Nebraska to Bellingham, Washington and back. We camped in national forests, mostly off old logging roads, and by the time we got to Washington, we'd been roughing it for a while. We passed through Leavenworth, Washington, late in the afternoon on our way west, and turned down a logging road somewhere outside of Coles Corner in the Okanagan-Wenatchee National Forest. The sun was getting low, so we wanted to make camp quick. We found a spot with 4 or 5 little turnouts and old fire rings all within 500 yards. But it didn't look like it had seen much use in a while. We pulled off on the best looking one. There was a clear stream running right beside it, and plenty of old firewood someone had left behind at some point. As soon as I got out of the car, I got this intense, sinking feeling. A cross between nausea and knowing that something was watching me. The nausea passed pretty quick, but I felt eyeballs burning into my back from then on. I didn't say anything to my wife, didn't want to freak her out, and started making camp. Right before dusk, she went on a little walk up the road to stretch her legs. I climbed up the embankment opposite of the creek just to look around. The feeling that I was being watched only increased up there, along with a sense of foreboding, until I felt I couldn't or shouldn't go any further. We made dinner and cleaned up, got a small fire going. It was new moon and pitch black except for our fire. My wife was sitting with her back to the stream and embankment, and out of nowhere, she got up and leapt over the fire. I asked what the hell was she doing, and she seemed frightened. She said she just couldn't sit with her back facing that way. My wife is not easily shaken, but she then proceeded to tell me she'd been feeling uneasy since we got there. I told her I felt the same. At least we were on the same shitty page at this point. We watched the fire a bit longer, and then crawled into the tent and passed out. Excuse me. Maybe an hour later, after falling asleep, I woke up to my wife slamming her fist into my chest. It was strange. Normally, this would have startled me for sure, but I woke up with the most intense sense of dread I've ever had. I felt half paralyzed. She started telling me about a dream she just had where there were big hands outside the tent reaching around, maybe looking for the zipper. She was almost in tears, and I couldn't figure out why I was still filled with dread. Just then, we heard 2 heavy footsteps, maybe 15 yards from our tent. I felt frozen. We listened for more, and maybe 30 seconds later, we heard 2 more steps from the same direction. Then something lightly tapping on our car. The 2 more steps. For some reason, I had thought I should bring our axe in the tent with us, something I hadn't done till this point. And since we didn't have a firearm in the tent, I grabbed the axe. I worked up the nerve to unzip the door and look out. The fire had burned down to dim embers at this point, and my headlamp was a piece of shit. I scanned around quickly but could see nothing. We were so freaked out, we broke camp in the dark and headed down the road until daybreak. I can't say for certain what we experienced was a Sasquatch, but the more I've learned about these things, the more I think it very well could have been. Either way, you're right about our sixth sense. We've all got it buried in us somewhere. Just need to learn how to use it. Thanks again for all you're doing. Alright, man, and thank you for sending that email. Pretty sure you know what it was. Pretty sure a lot of people here listening know what it was, right? So many emails, and I'm so done, you guys. I'm so done. It's a long day. I think I'm going to sock it in. I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to be back, and I'm going to share more. I'm not going to frickin' stop. Why? Because I can share the truth. Not too many people are sharing the truth these days, but as long as I can keep sharing the truth, as long as I can keep sharing all the truth that all the people bring here to share with all you, I'm going to keep doing it. So there. I'll be back tomorrow, for sure. I'm going to share more. If any of you have anything that can help the people, email it to sharemystoryhowtohunt.com, alright? You email it there, and I'll get it shared. We've got to stick together. We are all we have is each other, and that's it.